Yeah, right. Okay, so hello. We are just doing those final project proposals. So if you did submit them to Canvas, I went ahead and downloaded them, which should include a couple of Google links. So I checked and those were fine. My job during this process is basically to I'm going to sit over here somewhere and I'm going to take notes. And obviously, I'm also going to offer feedback. The notes are mostly for like stuff that maybe I might show you, like other projects that are related to your project, or some individualized education type stuff. So as we kind of move on from here, does anybody have any questions about sort of where we're going and how we're going to get there as a class? I know you may have those questions for yourself about your project. Okay, so I think that I'm going to go ahead and maybe get my own video off of here. So I guess my question is, who wants to present this first? Okay, I'm going to allow Gayatri the opportunity to present first. And Gayatri, did you submit your project so that it's visible from the main page? Okay, great. So this is you. Awesome. Okay, well, so you can just navigate through it. Maybe we'll talk about that first, and then we'll talk about the final project presentation. Let me move this. Yeah, sure. You can.
Gosh. So for my P5JS web project, my theme of interconnectivity was pretty much inspired by Frida Kahlo's art, mainly because she connects her personal self to every single piece of self-portrait that she produced. So I kind of wanted to use different coding techniques on her self-portraits and see just experiment with the kind of flow that she kind of gives us in the connection to how she views herself and how she portrays herself on canvas. So on the first page, I kind of took each self-portrait, about like 5 of them, and remade them by pretty much taking the color of each pixel. So you could just go through each one and it comes up like that. Then for the next one, I kind of wanted to make it more fluid. So I was kind of inspired by, I forgot who made that, but the last time we did processing, someone made like a noodle, I think it was you, and you could move it and there were like noodles that would just form every time you could click to it. So I kind of got inspired by that, and I made this kind of portrait of her, which moves where you keep your mouse. So with every kind of motion, it just creates a kind of vacuum in there and creates a flow. And I do that for each portrait again. And then finally, I was just doing some research on her, and I found out that her favorite song was a certain Spanish song. So I wanted to kind of incorporate that in my last one. So for that, So for this, I wanted to do like an amalgamation with the first 2 ones. So I chose to kind of make a vector redrawing of it, in which there's kind of like these spirals that kind of create the image again, instead of just taking the color of each pixels. So yeah. I'm gonna. Sorry, I can't hear you with the music. Sorry. What were you saying? Sorry. Thank you. Sorry, I can't hear you. Sorry. Yeah, that's what I kind of wanted like reproduce. I was like kind of the first two ones, it was pretty much just like pixel the reproduction. So, and the second one is just pretty much like a noodle version of that, but I kind of wanted to make it more fluid and like almost like she was painting in front of us. So. Yeah, pretty much blocking for both. Actually, for the vector, the last one, I kind of ended up using these kind of like spirograph circles. So I took a point of like center, and then from that center, I calculated the color of all the pixels around it, and then drew the spirals according to the color of each pixel, and then it would swirl it.
You can show us the picture. They're soft.
Yeah.
Soft.
I think one of the things that makes me sort of drawn to this work is that the qualities of the work are sort of pixels.
Yeah.
And that seems to make a really good sort of where it's not like you're attempting to sort of it's not
Yeah, like for the first one, I was trying to experiment with kind of layering two images of her, two self-portraits, but that wasn't really working out well. It didn't give me the kind of like painterly effect that I wanted. So I ended up trying to figure out what size of pixels I wanted for the first one, and then actually all the 3 pages are pretty much a progress of what I started up and what I ended up with. So all the code is a little bit connected in each ways because I used the previous code to create the new page that I was working on.
I noticed it looks like a few of the examples are in Webgl, and maybe all of them are in Webgl, but some of them are 2D and some of them are 3D.
Actually, none of them are in Webgl.
Oh, really?
Yeah. This one's pretty much just a normal thing, and this one it does look like it's a little bit Webgl, but pretty much the only reason it looks so 3D. Yeah, the only reason it looks so 3D is because of the way I made the each kind of worm move with regards to where you keep your pointer. So it pretty much is kind of like I saw like this one, not like a quote, but like I saw like this idea of like you take a school of fish and you kind of like make it disperse every time you go near it. So I kind of try to use that to like kind of create the painting, but I also didn't want to like disperse it completely. So I wanted to go back to the original pixel point it was at. So I know at the end I thought also I probably should have used Webgl. It might have made my work a little more easier to get the kind of creative 3D thing, but I kind of like the way this turned out because it made it feel more like a lot of movement and more like actually like the dots of each color just kind of coming out at you. And also, oh yeah, I kind of forgot. You could also like click on this on a left arrow key to take a picture of that particular frame. So you get a picture of that frame at that point. So yeah, I just wanted to create like the process of painting, and like all the colors she ended up using and most of her self-portraits are always reflective of pretty much her personal needs at that point. And in the last one, the 2 Fridas, she chooses to kind of symbolize her inner self combined with what people kind of view her as. So for that, I wanted to be more in the process of painting rather than seeing the finished product.
I sort of feel like these could in that sort of criminal being made state. I agree that they're much more interesting than probably having just a static image.
Yeah, I think my favorite part was just getting the screenshots at any point that you wanted. It just made it more fluid. Yeah.
Like my favorite stuff were the last one, the one where I started interacting with the mouse. I don't know how you made it, but I think it's like impressive. Also, it looks a lot like art kind of.
Yeah.
Which is like a really cool fact. Also kind of like band go.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see how styles.
Yeah, I wanted to like, if I had more time, I just wanted to make an impressionist or kind of redrawing of her paintings, pretty much taking the pixel image color of each single point of a painting and then recreating it with like a random, with a random pixel size, so I could get like an impressionist form of it. But it wasn't really working. I needed probably a bigger data point to work from. So hopefully, maybe after some time, I can figure that out too. But yeah. This is kind of like the end result I was going for. Yeah. Yeah. So one of the ideas that I wanted to start off with was pretty much using Webgl and creating like a 3D image of every single famous artist, like portrait, and you could kind of like move around the portrait and see what is going on in there. But yeah, I mean that's a really good idea. Maybe I could like turn this part of it into like a 3D representation of like all the nodes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this kind of reminds me of some of the like early AI tests where they would just keep running AI on different art, historical works of art. You know, kind of just what comes out, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's all right. Well, thanks for bringing that to us.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not on this. Oh no, you're good. I'm trying to figure out which desktop you might be on. Oh, this one. All right. So for this project, so in one of my CS classes, what we're working with right now is creating a compiler from scratch. A compiler is pretty much what makes your computer run. It takes the code you write on the screen, converts it to binary, runs it through again, figures out whether you're written the code right or wrong, and brings out the result that you want for any program. So when I was thinking about working with a compiler, what really interested me was the three languages that we go through, which is the language you write in, and then it goes to C++, which is even more lower level, and then it goes to binary. So I kind of wanted to make something where the user can input in a code, a string, or even a short JavaScript code snippet. And I wanted to convert every single part of that code into binary. Get the binary result. And then I also saw that a lot of people use binary to create music, pretty much using the ones and zeros as the high and low points for every kind of waveform. So I wanted to use that and kind of create a song with any kind of input the user gives me. Yeah, so probably text input given by the user converts to binary. From binary, I want to create the sound. And then after the sound, I'm thinking of maybe getting the sound that was created at that point and making it into an audio visualizer. So kind of like pretty much seeing your code move. Yeah. It's not really necessary so far because pretty much all I have to do is convert each string I get into binary. I did want to kind of like go into the nitty-gritty of it, but then when I do go to assembly language, I have to start thinking about whether the code they entered was grammatically correct or whether there's some errors in how they're entering it. So that would kind of like stop the process of the user interaction, and I just have to like give them code like they can just click on and they'll move. So I wanted to make it more like user friendly too. So yeah. No, this is just probably just like when you get the binary, and then oh yeah. So I wanted to take in the sound produced by the sketch at the end of it, and then make an audio visualizer with that. So it's pretty much going to be like based on what the user inputs. I think the biggest problem I probably have was just with the getting the sound inputted at that point and then converting it to MP3 and then making an audio visualizer again with that.
I think it sounds like a perfectly reasonable and interesting premise for one project. One of the things that maybe I was just going to challenge is that you're starting with this binary string. It sounds like, but where does that string come from?
Any user input?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can come from an image,
Yeah.
it's sort of reduced to binary. It could come from, a gesture. I mean, literally anywhere.
Yeah.
So I guess I would just maybe like think through some of those possibilities.
Yeah, I was kind of like worried it might be too simplistic because I only was thinking of inputting like code, but yeah, I think adding pictures or maybe like even simple computer gestures and creating that into binary would be like maybe make it a little more better.
There was some. It kind of reminds me, not in the aspect of it being binary, but it kind of reminds me of a piece that I saw at the ZKM in Germany. It's the they had a piece where you could arrange objects on a belt, like your phone, your keys, and it would scan and then basically come up with a waveform that fit those kind of everyday objects.
Oh.
But the cool part about it was sort of how it worked. So it was constantly moving. So anytime we added something to it, it would change the song. Right?
Oh, it feels like a golden ratio to waveform kind of thing. Because I think at the end of the day, when you want to create a perfect wave, they do end up using the golden ratio when they want to create anything that's like rectangular to a proper sine or cosine wave. Yeah, I think that's.
I could probably find you documentation.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I'm kind of thinking of taking, suppose it's like a string of like words. I think of taking the binary of that and then taking the knot of that for maybe like the base, and then the actual binary string for the frequency. So I pretty much get opposing waves that I can kind of work with. Yeah, I really like any ideas on how to like make this more. I feel like it's a little too simplistic for a final project, but I do want to like work with something like
Well,
this.
I think it might be one of the things where you kind of get the basic architecture or the basic workflow or architecture set up, and then maybe there are sort of side that you can go on that might be really interesting. And once you kind of get that flow of binary to sound and kind of how that works and what it does. So I think it's a fine place to start. I definitely would be.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So I actually wanted to know like which would be better based on the libraries for each and like kind of the resources. Like processing does seem like it could translate well to any kind of system that I do want to use it on, but I think PFI is more up to date in terms of the libraries I can use from it. So I was kind of a bit conflicted in that.
This is a PFI project,
Okay.
but I mean that's only because I think that this has other people might want to use it. It has something in that web context. It's really easy to share with
Yeah. Yeah, I was I was pretty much thinking of creating a sort of simple JavaScript kind of web page and then using Webgl and Vue.js to kind of make it user interface based. Yeah, I'd love to know like what else I can change to make it more like interesting and more relevant.
I'll try to find some documentation for you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Basically, for every single one of you, I'm going to try to get myself, homework assignment to bring in some stuff for you to look at, or just inspiration or something. Okay. So, yeah.
Thank you guys. Yeah. I'm afraid of like.
Who wants to go next? Okay. Noah, I got a link for you. I can. Okay.
Yeah, so basically my idea is to try to generate like watercolor style paintings that like, this is really hard to explain. Here, let me show the next slide first and then I'll go back. So basically I want to try to use like Polygon Deformation to try to generate these like splotches that look like you just like dab a watercolor on a page. So the last picture is kind of what I'm talking about. So you start with like a regular polygon, like an octagon or something, and then add a bunch of points and keep doing that over and over again until you have like the third picture, which is kind of just like this random shape. And then once you have a bunch of those, kind of stack like transparent layers on top of each other, and that makes the edges like a little fuzzy and kind of like simulates that bleeding that watercolors have. Yeah. And then, yeah, I don't, disclaimer, I don't actually know how to do that yet. So that's just my idea. I don't know if it's going to be possible or like feasible, but I'm going to try. Yeah. Okay, wait, sorry, SVGs are vectors, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you could basically, I mean, it just might be easier within the context of a file. You can just like load all of the shape into an array and then
Go from there.
do whatever. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
So in terms of workflow, it might be a little bit different.
Yeah, that's kind of the basic idea. I want to like kind of like push the boundary between like paintings are obviously kind of hard to generate, and I want to kind of push the boundary between like human-made art and computer-made art as sort of like a Turing test, if anyone's heard of that. To kind of like, where's this line between human-made art and computer art? Yeah, and then this is kind of like an example of what I'll be going for, something like this. That's kind of, yeah. I hadn't considered using time to like kind of affect like whether things blend together. That's a good idea. I'm actually gonna do that. But as far as your first question, like with the transparency and things like blend together, that's kind of like my, I guess my whole goal is to try to make like these, like I guess in this picture where like the blues and the purples kind of mix together. So my plan was to like place these blobs kind of by hand, choose the colors for them, so it's not totally random. So like it's not like red and green are mixing together and making a bunch of brown. Start with that.
You know, it'd be really cool. If you know how when you're making a watercolor, it's about also about the sun where
No, I could here. I think I have an idea. So my idea for kind of like deforming these was to like vary the like, if you can imagine in this polygon right here, like imagine a point like running out, was to vary like the angle or the distance and things like that.
well, I guess what I'm talking about is not just, you know, having a common technique in watercolors where you work wet, so you wet the paper down, and it actually drop the top down. It sort of follows the laws of what fluid dynamics, right? As
Right.
it sort of, you know, this block.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So I guess I mean like to try to simulate different surfaces or like different wetnesses. Like, sorry, this is really hard for me to explain. To try to simulate different surfaces, different wetnesses, like tweaking with those. Like, I'm certainly going to have to do a lot of tweaking of those like deformation parameters and like transparency and things like that. And I think that might kind of go into that territory a little bit.
Yeah, it seems like, but yeah, I would. I guess think about like you know, and whether that is a call to have little like particle objects that become part of a system, you
Yeah.
know, or if that's like a whole other ball. Versus intensity of product. So they kind of have to explore each color of the time that you know the time that you generate. And based on that, you can have the table, and from there you can kind of access color or that identity canvas. So maybe you can kind of create a hash, it's called hash table. So like you have to go aside beforehand program based on what's done before and say, it's more time that it's done the better I want. But on your program based on the time elapsed for each paint period create on each color from that. That's with the transparency and the time it takes to
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, you know, you know, the intricacies of how that is actually is pretty, you know, depending on how far you want to drill down into the system, you know, it's really quite complex. My project.
sort of certain library and it's mostly we have quite a lot of connections, but you make each single RGB point how not you want to depending on where you want the light source from. Product might be something that's facing a lot of that's just weird to all around. But I think maybe thinking of more solid color like oil still might actually be more real. And
Mhm.
If, let's say that you're, sort of working on this, sort of tool-oriented project. Is this a project where the user is going to be able to do whatever they want, or is there going to be some sort of like, what are they going to draw? Like, what are they going to do once they get in there?
My original intent was to simply make like a series of like a triptych, kind of like 3 just related paintings that would just be static images. Partially because in order to like deform all these polygons to like stack all these layers, it's a lot of math to do, and it might be kind of slow to be interactive. But I haven't done it yet, so I don't know. So I'm definitely going to try it. So I think it would be really cool to be able to kind of like I guess paint in real time. But so I guess I don't know.
Yeah, I guess kind of like, getting out of the sort of finance of how this is going to work computationally. Like, one of the big questions that I have with the project is like, what is the tool going to be making? Is it really about the product, or is it about the tool? And that's not for me to say. One is not better than the other, but I think that definitely like thinking about two-dimensional images, that subject matter is just a very different proposition. Tool that anyone can use, right? So maybe somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like when I thought of this, my mind was not in the place of like, oh, I want people to like, this is gonna be a thing that they draw. That wasn't where I was thinking.
Okay.
But
So this was more like a tool for you to make the most part.
yeah, yes.
Okay.
People building tools. I feel like people want to make like artwork with making tools like this, and like, just making like little libraries and functions. It's just a practical thing you can do, because I feel like it's like not very. I don't know. I mean, people have talked about it, but to me, like, it seems really cool. like you have to build out tools like this for yourselves. For some really good stuff. So.
I've done it myself, and it's like sometimes at the end of it, I'm sort of like too much, like cool, but sometimes I'm like, no, I really did need to do that. So,
No, that wasn't my plan, but now that I'm hearing everyone's ideas, I kind of want to, that might be something I want to try. Like kind of how you did where you like sample the color at each position. So yeah, I think that'd be pretty cool. Yeah.
as you're kind of looking through some of the technology, what it is that and not just what it is, but like why, why it's important to
Like cool if you could like apply that to like any graphics, so like whether it's an image or it's just like a single shape, like a circle or like square, and you can make like a whole like massive composition of just like shapes for like making all watercolor. It's crazy.
How do you mean watercolor individual?
Like instead of like taking like a finished image and then like applying the watercolor function using to like change that like graphics and watercolor, apply it to like each graphic as you're drawing. So let's say you're drawing like a fountain squares around the colors around places, apply like the watercolor to each one separately.
Gotcha.
Instead of like the entire image at once.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Oh, yeah, that'd be really cool. What's-
I think certainly like it's never a bad thing. I do want to that I we're using historical images as a way to kind of like legitimize their own activity, and we're definitely not living in kind of have to justify, choose our historical works to somehow justify that we're making art ourselves. Instead, it uses a different gesture where it's like that, that history. But yeah, I think these are all very suggestions. find, when you're up there presenting, you find out that maybe, you didn't think of certain things because we're all human beings. So thanks a lot.
So I just have one final thing. Sure. Like, I think especially watercolor, what's so interesting is that its uses change so much. If you look at art history, so like just I think it's going to be really cool to kind of show us, because not just in the use of watercolor, it can use just the color palettes that they have used. The impressionism was in Renaissance. People's time, the way watercolors changed so drastically. I think that was really cool. If you have that with your on the palettes and textures that they would use that because the feeling sound of drawing on like models or realistic ones that change the colors you see and what color to make it less realistic and more not just imagining their creation of the landscape. I think that would be very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about that for a second, like a lot of contemporary watercolors, where maybe there's a giant white sheet of paper or like a tiny little bit, but sort of, sort of trend, where, definitely like a sort of a lot of that sort of brush strokes. So, I think about. Sure. Where did we already? Oh, we didn't. No, you're right. Good call. And then just so you know, there's like if you just go to the Finder, that's where your link is like right there. Okay, everyone, get started. So I'm just gonna quickly show my website because it wasn't working last time we did critique. So I got it to work. So pretty much it draws a bunch of like little circles, and you can like change the color, the size of it. That's pretty much what this one is. And then for the second one, it's just this little blobby thing that goes around. And I didn't finish my third one. The third one had something to do with the webcam, but I didn't get to finish that one. So here's my proposal. So obviously you can see with my other two projects, or the other two pages on my webpage, I like using color, and I definitely want to have some sort of like user interaction in my final project. I like working with movement and different shapes. And I want to try to go into different kinds of shapes because in my projects are just these ellipses, and I want to try using something else. I feel like I've been playing it safe with just using circles. So kind of like how these things implement color, like the snaking stuff, so you can differentiate what's the snake and what's like the apple, or like the whatever it is that the snake's trying to get. So I have two different ideas in mind, but I think I might go with the second one. So the first one is maybe something, and for this I want to use the webcam for sure. So maybe like there's already like an imported drawing or something where you select a part of the drawing, and then wherever the webcam is pointing to, it'll take that color
and like fill in that area with that color. And I'm leaning more towards this one. It makes it some sort of like a mosaic kind of thing, which I guess kind of fits into like the projects that the other two people have presented already. So maybe like it'll take the color from the center of the webcam and use that to fill in, use that as the fill for the shape, and then you can just click to like make like a mosaic. It's kind of what I'm thinking. And I think I'm gonna make this on my webpage. It'll be more geared towards like for use on mobile rather than on like a computer. And I'll make sure I have clickable sprites because I did try to use my other website on my phone. And it didn't really work that well because I think on most phones, if you were to drag down, it refreshes the page. And I want to try avoiding that, so I'm going to try to add clickable sprites so that you don't have to like move around as much, which might cause you to like refresh the page. And yeah, I wanted to like maybe like have it be like a color series on our webpage where each of the pages has something to do with color. So they're all following a similar theme of color and different like ways you can draw and like mess with color. So that's all I have right now.
Format like pretty early on because we all know that we can bring up our P5 web pages in our browser, but that sort of creates an encapsulated experience where you've got all the rules that apply to the browser. So I think if you on the app, you can have a much better time. I don't know if it's unfortunate. Want to make a standalone processing and not design.
Yeah.
So that would basically, I think, involve sort of, ordinance processing and building it back up. Although I mean, maybe I'm being dramatic, because I think it's coordination should be happening. But it's something. And also the time.
Yeah, I think just the idea of trying to incorporate is really smart. I feel like I've never seen like any apps or maybe I just have those using like Q5 canvases or something, like apps. So that's unique. Also, like I said, like just executing. Like a challenge. I'm curious why you thought you had these processing. Why couldn't you make like a little app?
You could yes, you could definitely do that. And the last time I made that, HTML page, which is kind of a hack. So we could do that. I think this is I said that because it's on kind of work a little to use the Android mode.
Yeah, that's where I was curious. I knew, like, I didn't know how it was going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of sad.
Yeah.
So much.
Yeah, that falls off.
That's like,
I mean, that might be true, but definitely is but I mean, in general, we always have lots of great suggestions about how to get there. I'm gonna sort of apparently everyone today. What are what do you why are you doing this? What do you want people to get out of it?
So like I put it in my one. So I still don't really know if I want this to be like a game or just like a not fidget toy, but like a way where you can like spend like pass the camera, just like open it up and just kind of like mess around with it for a bit. So I don't really know exactly where I want to go with this, but I think it's more of just a way to experiment with color. Specifically this one with the implementation of the webcam. You can incorporate color around it. Versus the other one, it's like that one is color that's specifically just within the phone. Using with this, you can just color.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would talk on that. I guess the goal is sort of, you know, like what is the goal for the viewer or experience or somehow get away from their lives. You know, if that's the case, maybe that might be like the I mean, you know, first thing you know, like, something between stuff, in between, like, I hope that I do that. So, you know, that time. Whatever, that's kind of concept, but I'm sure especially,
with like those calm games or apps and games and like I always see ads for them, which sort of it's really relaxing. You know, it's just like stuff like this, you know, for it's a piece of
Yeah.
it's some satisfying stuff.
Or I can files in it. So then all top of them, all space left. Always
Yeah. Yeah, I guess one of the, you know, mean, I think that there, I think. That you like kind of.
Like one way like that someone like uses to, like if they're walking down like a park or like a botanical garden or something, and they're not really into like just looking at the flowers and like walking through, like they could be like to like capture like the color of the flower and like put that on and capture the color of like the leaves. I think they either developed or are developing like a pen that like you put it onto like a surface and it'll take the color of that surface and then you can like paint with that like on paper.
Well, yeah, it's also like your sampling basically.
Yeah.
So I mean that's sort of the for it. I think definitely like one thing that I'm sort of thinking about from the computer science side. I'm a little scientist, so like I have some concept of how they operate. And every time I come up with an idea, my scientist partner is like, what problem does that solve? Like, what problem does that solve? And I'm just like, I mean, that's the wrong, like, totally wrong at all, right? Because, yeah, we're not. But, well, I mean, maybe social justice work could count, yeah.
Yeah. So like I put it in the beginning, right? I don't know if I want to make this into a game or just something like at the time. Because I did kind of think about like if I were to turn into a game, how would it be scored? I'm thinking like maybe like it'll judge the accuracy of your painting versus like what the website is showing or something. But I did think about how it could be turned into a game for a little bit, but maybe I'll think about that more and see if I can like, add more elements to that.
We may also just like at some point check in while we're here.
Oh,
Sorry.
I thought you saw mine.
Oh, no, Michelle was behind you.
Oh.
At least a full second ahead of you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, let me see if I can find it. Hey, there you are.
I don't know why it's not over. Um, oh. Okay. So my idea for the final project is graphic art, 3D data visualization. So combining data visualization with Webgl rendering. Um, yeah, so the area of interest and focus is data visualization and P5JS, Webgl. And I was inspired by the third iteration I made for the web project, which is the still image of the data visualization for the for like the data set upon from Kaggle. It's so the original data set is quite large. It's like 32 gigabytes. So I only take 100 of them and put them like still image like this. Um, so for the final project, I plan to do like and 3D render, 3D data visualization with animations. And as you can see from the sketch, I plan to render like each of the NFT art on one cube, like each face as a texture. So one cube represent like NFT art and places them on a sequence. So it looks like a chain. So it like represents the like a blockchain. And um, on sketch you can see there are 3 chains of them. I plan to like render as many as possible, and each of them can rotate like a different angle, and that's the animation I want to make for the project. Yeah, and I plan to because I used to encounter like frame rate issue for the first 3D rendering. Maybe there were too many polygons or too many things to render. The frame rate just doesn't isn't good. So I think I'm not sure yet like how many data points should I use, but I think I'll see like to render it at least like 30 frames or something. Yeah. And so that's the general idea for the final project.
Yeah, it will. No, like, I'm laughing at you, but yes, it will look a lot cooler. And that's pretty much 3D. But yeah, it is true. It will be.
I imagine now would be like just cubes and put texture on them, so it will not like deform too much, you know. It's like only I know there are like video or GIF and FDR, so I think I will only pick the still image one and put them like on each side of the cube, so it will not deform or something like that.
That's inspired me from either the trepidation just from the whole like experience that we've had with textures will definitely slow down the rendering in Webgl. So I'm thinking of a couple of strategies to preload them that would definitely be helpful. Maybe there's some way of only rendering textures that are sort of within a certain speed radius to the camera, or I don't know. I mean, maybe actually. We can cross that bridge when we get there. I think that even if this, I would all would be consistent. And I mean, I think basically what would probably be nice is if you go ahead and just do the entire project without the textures. So that you have some baseline for how it can work with and then sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, I plan to have multiple chains. So one of them like is one chain of NFR is keep a line on one line and rotate around that axis also. Yeah. And I want to mention like I plan to make the size of the cube scale with its price, so it's get a higher price, it will get a bigger cube, and also the text will scale with the price too, so it won't like make like so bigger cube have bigger text.
You know what would be really cool? An NFT of this.
Okay.
Yeah, what if we like the NFT?
Yeah, that would be cool.
I think this sounds like a great plan. I think it's I got some of the questions that I have earlier. Or is this something that it's like a passive, object animation that people look at, or is it something that they scroll through or navigate through?
Yeah, so I look at one function called orbit and or the easy cam. So you can I plan to one way is to animate this. So those chains will move automatically, but you also can orbit and move, zoom in and out to look at each of them individually. So that's my plan for that.
Yeah.
Yes. So, from my understanding, like blockchain is perfectly theoretically like secure. So it's deployed like on many servers, and if you want to like change something back in the something in the blockchain, you have to change everyone's like and every data on every server at the same time. So it seems impossible. So it's like look like a data structure like a linked list or something like that. So it's kind of secure, yeah, and it's like a chain. So that's my idea for the project.
I think it's really cool. I think if you continue along, we can, maybe as a company, we can offer you some input on ideas. Thank you so much. I think Wyatt was.
Do I have to go to the, oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, so for my project, the areas I'm interested in are WebGL and 3D shapes. And then also like multi-layered like photos. So like drawing on like multiple different graphics buffers instead of just like one canvas buffer, and then like culminating and placing all those graphics to make like a finished project. Also just interested in textures, as I have been with like most of my previous projects. And then I'm interested in making like generative vegetation, so like just like plants and vines and leaves and stuff. Vertexes, like vertices and curves, and like Bezier has always been something that's super just like not something I know a lot about, so I'm trying to learn more about that. And then my goal is to kind of like eventually evolve this into like a long form generative art project. Like a lot of my inspiration comes from like a lot of other generative artists. Zancan's an artist I think you're probably familiar with, and he's kind of the pioneer of like generative plants and regenerative nature. His stuff is absolutely crazy. And then Schwembilder, Pasta Boy, and Alt Asker, some other guys. This project right here is an example of a long form generative project by Pasta Boy. So like what a long form project is something where every time you run the algorithm, it generates a different output, and which obviously is just anything generative, but a long form project is something that can generate, 256 or 1,000 or 10,000 different outputs that all look aesthetically pleasing and all look very different. You can't have outputs that look like exactly the same. You can't have repetitiveness, but at the same time, it has to be obvious that the outputs all come from the same like algorithm. So kind of just balancing those three things is really hard. And then I'm super interested in just like the clash between like modernism and like nature. It's like, I don't know, it's this weird aesthetic that I haven't really like put into words for like describing to people. Like the most rudimentary level of it is like just like the most rudimentary like example I can think of is just like grass growing in between like a sidewalk or something. But just like the idea of like life coming out of these like very like structured and like industrial objects that you wouldn't think could like host any life. And that's kind of just like what I said down there, combining like the most simplest 3D forms with like some of the most complex 2D stuff. Yeah, so what I'm gonna make generative vines and plants using vertices and curves. I'm gonna make basic like 3D environments using just like native polygons, so like boxes and rectangles and spheres. And I don't really plan on getting too crazy with the textures on those things. I honestly love how like regular polygons and just like how you can see the lines and the faces is something that I really like, which is convenient because that's the cheapest. I mean, that's the easiest way to do it. And then I'm gonna get a lot better with learning to like draw all of my graphics on different buffers and like combining them. Something with WebGL I've been trying to do is just like never even create a canvas, because I just notice I'll draw a bunch of stuff on my canvas and then I'll realize like I want to layer stuff on top of it. But the fact that I'm in WebGL like makes positioning all of those things impossible. So having like multiple like graphics buffers is super helpful. And then, yeah, when I learn all this stuff, I'm going to combine it into like a generative art algorithm. I don't plan on having anything that's like good or like long form by the end of the year, but this project's like been in my mind for a while, so I plan on like evolving it throughout the summer and stuff like that. But I just plan on getting somewhere by the end of the year. So these are just like some images I have of like things I've worked on. So generating the vines is something I've put like a decent amount of work into like the past like few weeks or something, and then kind of took a break from that. And then this weekend I was trying to start to like draw those graphics on 3D environments. And as you can tell, like the first image on the left, like it's really, really glitchy and it's super complex and there's a bunch of stuff I'm like having to work through right now. But the one on the image on the right is like something I got by the end of the weekend, which I think looked a lot better. And that should kind of give you like an image of what I'm going for in the end. Like basically that, but much more complex and much more dense with a lot more objects and a lot more vines. But yeah, it's drawing the vines on the side of the 3D shapes is super, super tough. And the reason why I can't draw the vines in 3D is because they're all drawn in the same Z-plane. So like in WebGL, if you draw like two strokes and fill them on the same Z-plane, like since there's a Z-plane, like they don't like overlap, like you can see both strokes like interlapping, like they basically combine and it messes it up. So that's why I'm like drawing them in 2D and then yes. But I was bummed because I wanted to use them for 3D. So my solution was make like a separate graphics buffer every time I want to draw any 2D graphics and then like place it on the like 3D shape how I want it. Yeah, it's very like it's like making that wasn't crazy hard, but like parameterizing it so that I can make a generative like project and like place it anywhere is really tough. So that's what I'm working through right now. But yeah, that's my plan.
So, here. So if we were to somehow quantify sort of aim for the end of the semester, what would that potentially do? What would that potentially look like?
Yeah, well, I mean, definitely not creating a product. I mean, like just like overall, just creating, trying to create cool art. But honestly, I don't have a super firm goal by the end of the semester because I don't really know. Like, I really just don't know how long some of these things are going to take me to figure out. I've had this like long firm project in my mind for like almost all semester, and I've been like waiting for a time to start working on it. So like this is my like time to start working on it for sure. But by the end of the semester, I'd love to create like, I don't know if I'll be able to have a generative algorithm where like every time you run it, it creates something different, but I want to have, 3 or 4 examples of like much more complex, dense environments of like what I have on the right, just much more shapes and like much more life to it. With then some, some textures placed on top of it at the end. But I'd say that's my goal for the end.
Last question. Not probably not the last question. What are you hoping to see something that could be sort of it seems like right now you're aiming for these sort of static images
Correct.
and not as dynamically evolving.
Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I totally feel that. I mean, that's kind of what I'm trying to get at is like being able to make like, just textures for like a cube, and then I can just make a city of cubes and they all have vines on them. But yeah, true.
or like importing a model of an existing project and creating a texture on that project. So they're not like working, you're not making the surface and the texture, you just you already have your frames and you just figure out where you want to place each line of plant.
Right. No, I totally agree. I could get like some way I could get to some way cooler outputs way faster if I did something like that. But I know like long term, like long form with this project, I don't want to have any like assets besides code, you know, so I don't want to have any image assets. And I do want like the environments to be generative because, you know, like creating like a QB type like city-esque environment with just code is something I've been like looking into creating. But like when I'm just trying to figure out how to apply textures and like figuring out that, doing something like that can be a lot easier.
That does end up being the most like valuable lectures and like
Okay, I see what you're saying now. So I didn't even think about like actually applying these 2D graphics as like textures. Like right now, like I'm not like when I say I'm using them as textures, like I'm not using like the texture functions like in P5, like I'm just like creating textures with them. So like what I did here is like what I have placed on the side here is just a 2D like image, like PNG that I like created on a separate graphics buffer. And then I just rotated it and like kind of just stuck it right there. I'm not like applying it on the shape, but I haven't really looked into that. So.
I think that was actually what pretty much is mapping what actually wants, mapping it to whether like that on the side and then kind of mapping it onto your existing structure. As a kind of the process program language you create your generation of like any kind of and then wanting to map that should be have. And that should be mapped to at least the workers and also like how you want to place it.
Well, right. So, but if I was trying to create vines and vegetation that was like separate from the environment and like draped off the sides and stuff like that, like I feel like it'd have to be a separate element, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, so like you have separate like vegetation element, but like every single vegetation that you create must be mapped. That when you import it onto your 3D structure, you don't have to worry about things like you already have a map and then corresponding to what else. It will just generate. You have a random like output.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, there'll definitely be some sort of like parameterized function for like mapping it on there without, you know, just like obviously something to account for all the like coordinates and like Z positions and stuff. Making that be like not a lot of code is going to be hard though, I think.
Okay. I mean, it is just, it's.
But there's,
From a code perspective, it's almost identical to.
but there's no like collisions, but that I'm trying to detect because like the idea is like not for the algorithm to like place vegetation in places and be like, is this a good place? Like yes or no. Like the idea is that like it's only going to place it on places where it works. And like just like, you know, the positioning of everything is just going to be based on, you know, like the size of the 3D objects and like their radiuses and how far out it needs to be. I don't know. I guess I'm not fully sure like what extent of like, because I don't know. You could just say that like positioning something carefully is like collision detection in itself. But, what's that? Yeah, I mean, it would more so be like, yeah, I mean, it's not like defined edges though. It's like if you look at that shape to the right, like that shape's like the bottom base is made of a bunch of cubes. So like, and rather than me like placing the image on one cube, it's like I'm keeping track that I'm placing like a line of this many cubes, and then what's that?
So, I think a really good way, like, I work in Maya more than I do.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, so I think what you have to do is kind of like, when you create your edges, and you break down something, break down to any. You have to think about like, the length of each square edge that you want, like elevation going out, like, you want to get to it. So maybe you could think about, maybe like randomizing, or like, because you know, anything that's gonna grow is gonna only come out of the edge, not gonna come out of like a vertex or like a whole face. So maybe kind of like starting from that edge and then applying the pressures to that might make it maybe a little more easier. Add on to that, if you were to specifically like, I guess if you were to have it with any edges that you were having those define and pull the edge and going out of it, you could then add a deeper interaction element to it, right? You can then click and then sprout. Pull the edge.
Okay. Yeah, no, that would be super cool. The end goal is definitely just because I wanted to have it. I want it to be like a static image, just because I want it to be like just like a digital art piece in a sense. But that could definitely be cool.
I think I'm going back to Maya and give a little more better perspective on the kind of way it needs to be generated. I get into it, figure out where I want to go.
Yeah, no, I mean I do actually like a ton of development in Maya. But I don't know. I think what I'm going for here is more like brute force mapping onto like objects rather than like it's like I'm not keeping track of like the locations and edge locations of all these cubes that I'm drawing. It's more so like I'm drawing a large structure that I know is this wide and like this high, you know, and like whether it's made up of a bunch of like very small cubes or a bunch of very large cubes, like I don't want that to like affect where the vines should be drawn.
I feel like it's time to maybe a little bit of a learning where it is
Like anything that I've shown here, no. Anything that I like post, like online, no. Like I think if you like, yeah, but I mean, you can definitely like add in like image assets to like people like I don't know. I think it's kind of a debate where like people use like image assets as their textures and like slap like a film grain or something on their image at the end. It's like you can do all of that like in your code with an image asset, but it's like that's still kind of post processing. Like, I think the goal is to make everything made of code because then it can live on chain if you want to, make it an NFT or something like that.
definitely, I mean, I already knew the answer, just for the part, maybe that it's doesn't have to know the answer. But I do wonder sometimes, especially these like large, maybe you would say long form compositions, like, sometimes feel like we're giving the artist trust, but it was actually all
Mhm.
create that when they did this take them outside their door. So,
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think that like it like that shouldn't take away from the art. Like I think no matter what, like if what it looks like how you like what you use, what tools you use to get there, like I don't think like should affect the art. The digital camera didn't ruin photography, but so like I don't think that matter that much. I think it's kind of just like a cool feat where like some people are just more impressed when they know like it's all code based. But then again, I think generative art, which can which can run on the browser. The cool thing about that is you can just right click and see exactly what the person did and look at all their code and see exactly what assets and tools they used, which you can't do with other forms of art. So that's definitely like a cool aspect.
Mapping those color patterns on actually at the GA using just JavaScript.
Mhm.
So like if you want to find a class that
Yeah, no, I'm definitely, for sure. I'm super open to checking into that because obviously, like I said, like I'm definitely not really doing mapping. It's more of careful placement of the images and keeping track of what I've drawn in 3D. Maybe doing something with mapping would be better. I haven't really looked into that, but definitely down to, so that'd be great. Yeah, so making like different types of like plants is something I'm super like definitely gonna get into. Obviously, I'm not like happy with like how these vines look. Like the leaves don't have any lines on them. There's not really any like. It's like they're very structured vines. There's not a lot of texture in them. The coloring is just like a random RGB value. Like there's definitely a lot more I want to do with it. Flowers is a really cool idea because I think I could like contrast like some like pink or purples with the green really well. Yeah, right. Yeah, so honestly, I took like a few weeks to mess around with making the vines and the leaves and the curves, and then I honestly just got like super fed up with dealing with vertexes and curves. It's like it's honestly awful. So I got to that and I was like, I'm not gonna make these vines look any better until I like figure out how I'm gonna like even put them on freaking services. And then once I get to that point where I have like more built out, then I can go back and change my functions, my vine and leaf functions. But yeah. A height map? Okay.
Just so kind of start off with like we learned about solid noise. So creating a height map for any kind of vegetation always helps because it kind of gives you the most natural effect with regards to not just the height of each plant or like how much you want to extend on it, but also just the way it's like sort of careful placement. You can kind of give it a more of a height map, but you don't have to worry about going in again and again and kind of integrating the whole process for every single one. Pretty much just placing a height map and generating wherever you have those points. Make the whole thing like after time a lot.
Yeah, so I mean, like when you say height map, are you just saying like generate the height values from the noise based on like what your X and Y position is? Okay, so that's like I did that with those vines there you see hanging down. I didn't really mess with like how I wanted to like parameterize it with like how frequently I wanted the noise to loop and like stuff like that. But that's like definitely the approach I'm going for with the vines. But I'm gonna look into that for like making the like 3D structures as well.
Sure. Really love, like, just like every one. What you mentioned is like, like, computer house, they create very realistic, like, presentation for like a whole kind of, products that make very realistic in landscape.
Mhm.
And to that height map of like everything else I tried, the height map and the normal map for the height map. And the same way, like I was not trying to like generate, I was like, too much map.
Mm.
And I think that really got my mind short. Just for the fact that I didn't have to be great, but I can't offset the time.
Yeah, no, so I mean, I think that I'm gonna look into that for the like the structures. I kind of think naturally that just like ends up kind of being used, but I'm not like really defining an actual like height map, you know? But I think like, yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna look into that more.
Just like, especially because you want to have like the replacement.
Okay, so lots to talk about. Definitely continue this conversation outside of the context. Here for another couple of weeks. So Wyatt. Yeah, let us know when you're from Market Gosh.
Sweet.
Let's see. We have not heard from Holly, Timothy, and Cole. So it looks like I actually have to go at 4 o'clock for an owner's administrative task. So I think probably we've got maybe time for but we'll see how far we get, and if anybody's left, they can talk to us. Thursday, who would like to go now? Oh, that is solid conversation. Yes, I have it then. It's right here. Let's see. Oh, did you submit it like just now?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's different. Okay. Okay.
So I basically like my friends and I have like we play like RPGs, so like tabletop RPGs and stuff. And we have kind of like this fantasy world where like this giant continuity with a ton of campaigns in it. And so I want to make basically a data visualization. It'll have two components. The main component is going to be a map of the fantasy world, with kind of like little dots on it that correspond to the locations of each campaign. And then hovering over each dot will kind of like bring up like an interface that kind of tells you about either the campaign or the characters in the campaign, and so on. And then the other component would be kind of like a data visualization that can or like a more like graph or diagram based data visualization based on a spreadsheet that already exists, but I'll have to probably edit it a little bit. Yeah, that's basically it, and that can show all sorts of things about the characters. Yeah.
Really like my hair. But could you tell me, can you give us a what you mean by RPG?
Oh yeah, so like
Just to be clear, I know what that means.
Yeah.
I do that too.
Yeah, so like role playing games like Dungeons and Dragons is an example.
Is this visualization for?
It's for like I think we have like 100 of them ish now. So yeah, well most of them are like one session long, but yeah, so we have a bunch of campaigns that we can do for this, and then we also have our own system that has a rulebook that I'm designing. So I'm going to be making this in the same kind of design language as that rulebook, and this PDF is in that design language as well. I'm probably gonna make a like an SVG or maybe a raster image of the map first, and then put it in, and then yeah. Well, kind of. It'll be like I mean, yeah, I guess so. It'll be like dots positioned on the like axis. So I guess it would go like X, Y, and then based on your mouse position, like according to the X, Y, it's like if it's close enough to one of the dots, then it will pop up with kind of like a readout of some information about it.
So kind of what I'm seeing here is that there's going to be sort of different layers that the users can navigate through based on maybe some, as you say, manual entry expiration data.
So yeah, it'll basically be like the map, or like in the full realized version of this project. I might change it based on how this ambition kind of plays out, but it would basically be the map, and then probably like a button that would toggle the overlay of like the graphs and stuff like that for the spreadsheet.
I guess my question for you, ahead of that, are you, what challenges
I'm thinking, well, positioning the mouse, or like understanding the position of the mouse in relation to the dots might be kind of like a challenge. I'm thinking about going into like using a sprite library for that, so that I can detect just directly whether the cursor is on the sprite for each dot. Other than that, I know how to, and I've done it before for making like a toggleable kind of like UI overlay. So I think I know how to do that. And then other than that, I'm thinking like maybe animations for the different statistics or something like that, or like the pop-up menu. That would be something to look into as well. I think like including like individual characters would be pretty fun. I don't really know how to. I don't have like a solid way to do that. I was thinking like because I have illustrated some of the characters for the rulebook, so I might incorporate those characters and then have maybe instead of the visualization of the stats from the spreadsheet of all the characters, I might have like a visualization of the stats of like from the characters like character sheet basically. So like their like abilities and stuff. So I might have like an illustration of their abilities maybe as the overlay instead of the general statistics. So yeah, maybe. Oh, sorry.
We have a list on the side of articles and
Oh yeah.
on the way you want to go with each module, you just have a that would be like connect.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Like if there was like a character that has an illustration and then maybe the overlay or like the pop-up has like a little link to the character and that brings it. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, so that's super fun. I think thinking about some of this, like my analogy actually applies. Thinking about side quests is key here because it seems like an opportunity to add things and to try, to maybe add more detail to certain aspects of thinking too. So I sort of feel like it's a fantastic jumping off point for final project. I would definitely sort of design out what I'm learning.
Oh yeah.
And stick to it. Seems like this would probably be just fine as a project. And then all your, to access it. So probably, yeah.
Yeah. And also if it's a 500, then maybe even like embedded into the website that we're making for.
Well, one of my friends actually he wants it all coding and side quests. Basically, this friend, generative artist, said was getting frustrated with his code, and he just kind of super frustrated with it's side quests down. Basically that feeling of your coding, just can't stop, sort of forcing things or moving on to the next thing. Okay, well, this seems wonderful. Thanks. So, yeah.
Yes, I do not know how to use a Mac.
Oh, well, there's not much to it. You just click.
Okay.
Let's see. You are here.
Yeah, so I have mine in Google Doc. No. So my idea was kind of based on a couple of the two different projects that I worked on over the processing portion and then the P5 portion. The first thing that I made was a Synesthesia Synthesizer, which is like a visualizer that converted my association to colors and sound. And I turned it into kind of like a GUI where that way anyone could choose whatever palette they wanted and whatever songs they wanted. As long as they had those songs in .wav form, they could upload the songs, they could play whatever music they want, they could choose their own palettes, they could customize it to be similar to what they see. I wanted to do something similar. This was based on an idea, I think it was from Cairo. They had this idea about combining both the solar system that I made for P5, which is in this link over here, which is a WebGL solar system that I made. Oops, that's not good. Okay, it's just loading. Gotcha. Okay, there we go. So this is just kind of like a solar system that I made where it's orbiting based on a multiplier. When you click on each of these, it can move you, it will open up a space over here where it will have an aurora borealis of the color pattern of each of the different planets. So there's one for, I think the one for Neptune is really nice. Yeah, so something like that. I thought that for this project, let me see if I can get back to the proposal. So I thought instead of it
kind of opening up a new tab, it would be really cool to make this a mobile application where you could have an augmented reality view of the entire solar system. And then you click on the, you click on each of the planets and it would take you to an atmosphere where you could then choose noises, and then it would create a synthesizer using that similar aurora borealis effect. Kind of similar to this, but like imagine that instead of this being like trees and a forest, it would be the environment that you see on like Venus or Mars, for example, and it would be an aurora borealis that is like specific to the music that you choose. So to do this in either, I was thinking I could do this in VR. If this were an AR, it would basically generate those planets in the space around you. If this were in VR, I was thinking that it could be kind of similar to this YouTube video that I found of like, not this YouTube video. But it would be kind of like a VR simulation, kind of like this, where you would have like, you'd be able to move around in the space and see the clouds over here, or like the aurora simulations over here, along with that music overlaid. I think I chose this one specifically because oops, I'm sorry. There we go. Yeah. So something similar to that, where you could kind of see the visualizations in space, and then that way that would add like a three-dimensional effect to it that I wasn't able to, that didn't have the same effect in like the processing version of that augmented, or in the processing version of the Synesthesia simulator that I made. And then to do this, I would be, so I made a list of things that I'd need. I need a Google sheet of like the different star positions so that I was thinking that we talked last time about generating those stars. And I thought that it would be really cool to have like an Excel spreadsheet or a Google spreadsheet of like all the different locations of the stars, and then just like spawn them all around the solar system before the solar system is even generated. I'm planning on using p5.xr, which is a library that helps make these things in virtual reality or in augmented reality. If it were virtual, or I guess whether it's virtual or augmented, it would still be a mobile app. And it connects directly to p5.js. I also use what I have so far for the solar system in p5.js to generate the project, and then add p5.xr on top of it. And then I'd also be looking for a selection of music. We talked about trying different genres of music. So this time I used a lot of pop music last time. So this time I'm gonna do a little more classical synth music, indie, probably move a little bit away. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I have two questions. And
Yeah.
one, I have two kind of big questions. One, first of all, sure, sounds great. I guess my first question is, why consider generating like directly from analyzing images or something like that?
Generating music based on the colors themselves.
Yeah.
Oh, that would,
Or like the visual information. So that was just one thing. And then I guess the other thing that I was thinking, when you're sort of talking about this, is that whether it's AR or VR, you feel pretty domain.
yeah.
And so I have a pretty good idea of how this would work. But I have like, I guess I have this one problem, but VR, it's not very accessible, right? And Oculus Rift, so if you want to check it out for development. But that would be something if you're interested in checking it out. I think you know,
Okay.
yeah, but it's the format, you know, where instead of an AR now, it's a much broader sort of accessibility. You know, right?
Yeah.
So,
I was thinking that, so I definitely agree. That's one of the reasons I was kind of leaning towards making this AR.
yeah.
And then the reason I kind of considered VR was because I thought that it would be cool to make this a mobile app and then put it inside of a Google Cardboard, which is like, I think you can get them.
Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah, I could bring like a couple of Google Cardboards to class and then I could give them, and then I could have. Okay, yeah, that would be, yeah.
So yeah, it's totally up to you. I think this is, those are like important things.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be really cool. I definitely feel like this, your impulse to sort of like work with the color in the pages is something that you would want to like share through. Sometimes it's gonna kind of figure out the pages, right? Yeah. Well, I think this is definitely a piece of like a great idea to like good ideas like got together.
Yeah, piece together.
Yeah. Okay, no last feedback. Does anyone want to feedback their project in 10 minutes? It's guaranteed, so I have to.
There you go. I think it's good.
And then, yeah, you're right in there. Okay, so it looks like we're gonna have to do it on Thursday, right? You gotta be sure that but it'll be good to catch stuff on Thursday.
So my final project would be kind of a passive type. It'll be basically an MP4 format that has processing or P5 or processing rather, possibly some P5. It'll be an animation because it's drawn. I'll bring that stuff in supporting some of the things that I have. And these are the goals of the project here. And what inspires me. And I'll ask you guys if you ever take a ride out into the country or go out in the countryside to see an old house that's all fallen down. You wonder what the people were like that lived there, what it was like, either stone or wood. You see these a lot in the backdrops, particularly from the early farming era and things like that. And that's always been a big interest to me. I have interest in old houses and taking rides on old motorcycles. So because of that, I decided to take a look at that to this project. This kind of things that inspire me are seeing things like that. I just wonder about the inhabitants that built it, the people that live there, what happened to them. Undoubtedly, there's a lot of varied stories in their lives. What's that? Some of it is, yes. A couple of those are friends of mine. We actually, I will admit at times to have gone into some of these places. I probably shouldn't, but I find it irresistible. I don't take anything. Obviously, I'm on a motorcycle. I don't take anything, and I don't do any damage, of course. So my project plan. I'm going to set up a sequence of 4 scenes. The first scene is going to be my main character taking off from their place, taking a country road, kind of a scenic drive. That'll be supported a lot by kind of backdrops that are generated by P5 and and processing, probably more processing, because processing allows a transparent background that I can make that and then bring it in. I also want to take a look at taking some of the functions that I have and converting them to 3D, in particular, the ones that involve ellipses. I think those will be fairly easy. The rectangle ones that build up are going to be a little harder, but I might be able to work that out as well. Just to support that. In any event, upon taking the driving character, we'll see an old house in the backdrop and stop in, and all of a sudden the house will begin to regenerate back into its old self. And a few of the folks will be on the porch, possibly outside, if you from the early 1900s, something like that. This will be that part will be hand-drawn animation. Transitions, again, I explained will be there. And let's see. I'm looking for the bar to get down.
Properly full screen.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
That should get you free.
So I did a little mock-up and probably won't, this is just a quick mock-up of the idea of what it would be like at the first initial takeoff. Something like that. The person will be getting on it and jump on and take off. There'll be a little bit of music in the background and something good noise. And this would be kind of a mock-up of what the actual ride there might be back. And just some scene. The colors will probably be generated either P5 or probably processing. This is a mock-up of my main character that I did. It's based on a person that did drive around the world in the early 80s. She's also interested in architecture. She's a rather famous architect today. Masonry building. So I thought it'd be appropriate to have that be my main character. I did a mock-up of what that type of thing that was supporting processing or P5 around it might make it look kind of, you want to make it look kind of surreal as the thing is coming together. Another one I did was this one where I actually took this place and put it in a different location. So it'd be the same kind of thing. Again, it's pretty much a lot of my interventions, and in this case, the coding would be more just support, giving an illusion to it, basically. So that's pretty much it.
It sounds like a processing project to me, just because of the amount of time.
I'm wondering though, yeah, I think processing also because I need to, there'll be a lot of layers, will probably use import of some of that stuff into After Effects. Which will, the transparency will be important here because of stacking things up.
Sure.
That's what I'm thinking.
And definitely, like if your end product, ends up being like a video, it doesn't really. I mean, I trust.
Yeah.
If you end up stringing it together and putting it on your app. I'm really interested in. I think it's super challenging on a level where making this stuff happen.
Yeah, probably will have some just instrumental music played on a synthesizer. And that'll do something that will work with that.
Yeah.
I kind of know pieces of those songs that I can play.
Well, I mean,
person,
That people are like,
the person, are you talking about the person, the woman that was done?
Sorry?
Which person, what are you doing, what is being drawn?
like in your
Yeah, the woman that saved the bike ride will be drawn, she was drawn, I drove her. So,
and I think like the reconstruction,
what's that?
the reconstruction of the house.
The reconstruction will be, no, that'll be probably put together between this house and a number of others, so it's got to clear the trees out, then you can build up the walls. I've actually built cornices and things on houses like this, so I kind of know the structure of that side of it. So I know what to pick to put in there, I think, and then modify to make it work. I actually have machinery to do that type of stuff, so I kind of know what I'm looking for there. And all of them in these areas, 2 or 3 counties here, they use basically the same kind of crown mold. I have an old house that I fixed up. When I first bought it, I bought a bunch of woodwork machinery. Yeah.
And projects, pictures, projects building size pictures of what they used to look like pre, and it's just this amazing, projection of history, sort of really reflecting on what we used buildings for,
My father went through Cologne during World War II, and he came to visit me in the 70s when I was at the station in Germany. And he said he couldn't believe it. He said it was just flat. And today it's, all those places are just busted.
Yeah. And yeah, definitely, America now is a common property, but just,
I really like it. It's like,
yeah.
yeah, like all of us are just like, okay, like what are the four things with this? You don't even think of like
Yeah. Well, self-expression is an option. So yeah, and anyone can do it. I thank you so much, Timothy. I'll be working with you in the next 2 weeks, and I will be working with all of you. For this awesome project. So that's it for today. I'm gonna go ahead and turn off our stuff.
So every day just a work day from here on out?
Every day is a work day.